Good morning, dear students. I hope you all are fit and fine. So we have completed the geo part with that weather and climate chapter. Now we will start, as promised, history part. So chapter number 4, the Mughal Empire. Now this chapter is in continuation with the last chapter, that is the rise of new kingdoms, then the Rajputs and all those, uh, Delhi Sultanate, and then the Mughal Empire. So you should know the chronological order, you should know this series in which the events are taking place. See, because history, it is all about, if you go by the definition, okay, history is all about the chronological, means time in a series. Okay, for example, that 2017 will come first, then 2018, 19, 20, and then 21. Okay, so chronological orders of human event is called as history. And the last chapter, the Delhi Sultanate, we have closed that chapter at 1526. So 1526 is the date on the year in which the Ibrahim Lodi fought a war with Babur, and the war is known as the First Battle of Panipat. That war was won by Babur, and that led to the establishment of the next empire, which is one of the biggest empire in the India, by the Babur Mughal Empire, and that also led to the decline of Delhi Sultanate. Okay, so it is a series. हमने जहाँ पर खत्म किया था, we have to start again from that process only. Now, Mughal Empire, when we talk about Mughal Empire, you will find that many names like Shah Jahan, Akbar, very prominent name. You can easily connect it with some of the movies made on this heroes. For example, there was a movie on Akbar, that is Jodha Akbar, done by Ritik Roshan and Aishwarya Rai. So, so you will find Akbar the Great. Okay, so he was one of the Mughal Empire. Shah Jahan, Taj Mahal, Lal Killa, Aurangzeb. Okay, so all this we will discuss in this chapter, the Mughal Empire, their rule system. Okay, who will came first, then like Babur, Humayun, then who Jahangir, and many of them. Yes, so there will be a chronological system to understand the Mughal Empire. Plus, what are the individual achievements of all these rulers? Okay, and their administration structure, their polity as well as social and economical structure of the India during that time. Okay, means the Mughal Empire during that time. What are the positive points, what are the negative points in this empire? Okay, so let's start this chapter. I have just briefed you about what you're going to learn in this chapter. Okay, it's a very interesting chapters. You can easily connect it with some of the prominent monuments were built during this time. Okay, Taj Mahal is one of them. Let's start the chapter, and I will also be repeating the lines already said by this gentleman. So let's continue.
4. The Mughal Empire. The Mughals established a huge empire. They were good administrators, brave warriors, and left a political legacy that keeps them alive till date.
So, good administrator, I think we have already discussed that in Delhi Sultanate also. Brave warrior, yes. What is left a political legacy? Legacy, it's like virasat. Okay, it's you can say that they have left a very big impact, okay, on the Indian politics, and throughout the history, and even now also they are remembered for that system. Okay,
Many sources of medieval history prove that the royal Mughal emperors were truly interested in keeping the records of their achievements and other aspects of their reigns. Autobiographies such as Babarnama and Jahangirnama are examples of such efforts. The first six Mughals are called the Great Mughals.
So, see, starting from the rise of New Kingdom, okay, the first chapter from where the system started, then the Delhi Sultanate, and now the Mughal Empire, you will find that during the new rise of New Kingdom, there was no uh, as such sources available, okay, to tell us about the time period, the social, economical, agricultural condition, political conditions during that time. But Mughal Empire, what is the beauty of Mughal Empire? That you will find a lot of literature, a lot of monuments built during that time, which give a good information about that period. Babur Nama, Jahangir Nama are some of the prominent books, and Babur Nama is basically the autobiography of Babur. And you will find that if you ever get a time to read this, you will find it is a very positive book. It shows how never give up motto works in life. Okay, how never back down system works in life. Okay, so the first six Mughals, okay, the first six ruler or first six kings in the Mughal empires are called as the Great Mughals. After that, all the others who came after the sixth one are called as the later Mughals. Okay,
Babar, 1526 to 1530. Babar was the first Mughal emperor. He was born in a small place called Farghana in Central Asia. It was at the tender age of 12 years that he became the ruler of Farghana in 1491. Babur tried to conquer Samarkand but failed. In 1504, he conquered Kabul. When Babur was ruling Farghana in Central Asia, at the same time the Lodhis were ruling over the Delhi Sultanate. The local rulers were not happy with the Lodhis. As a result, they sent a message to Babur to come to India and defeat the Lodhis. More than the invitation, it was the wealth and richness of Hindustan that lured Babur to plan an expedition to India. The First Battle of Panipat. In 1526, Babur faced Ibrahim Lodi in the First Battle of Panipat. The Lodi army was huge when compared to that of Babur's, but Babur had a good cavalry, which had fought many wars, and an efficient artillery. Without much difficulty, Babur defeated Ibrahim Lodi. He successfully conquered Delhi and Agra. The Battle of Khanwa.
so till now, what we have seen that first Mughal empire was Babur. Okay, he was born in the Central Asia and he was ruling during that time in that part. But he knew about the Indian wealth, and people living in India during that time, means during that Delhi Sultanate area, they were not happy with the current ruling kings, rulers. So they invited Babur to attack on Delhi Sultanate. Now, Babur already wanted to attack on the Delhi because he have heard about the wealthness, about the money, about the gold which the Delhi Sultanate or the India during that time carries. Okay, so it was not mere just the invitation. Babur was also ready to attack the India, and during the first battle of Panipat, as discussed, Ibrahim Lodi lost the war and Babur conquered the Delhi and Agra, resulting into the establishment of Mughal Empire in India. Now, there are some wars which Babur also fought with the other rulers than the Lodhis. Okay, so he fought wars with Rajputs and many others, and he tried to win that war, and even he was successful, succeeded also in his attempt.
The following years in 1527, the Battle of Khanwa took place. Babur fought this battle with Rana Sanga of Mewar. Babur easily defeated his opponent. 2 years later, he also defeated the Afghan chiefs at Ghagra. In a short span of 4 years, Babur conquered a number of territories that extended from Himalayas to Gwalior and from Indus to Bihar.
So see the green area. Okay, see the green area. You will find that just in 4 years, this is the full area which was conquered by Babur. So it is a very big area. Okay, conquering by foreign rulers, and from here you will see how this area convert into a full India at the end of the last great Mughal.
With these conquests, Babur's position was secured in northern India. He died in 1530. Wonderful to know, Zahiruddin Babur was a learned man who could speak three languages: Persian, Turkish, and Arabic. Memoirs like Tuzuk-e-Babari and Babarnama give us a lot of information about Babur's personality, his reign, and the kingdom he ruled.
So Babar Rama or Tujuk-e-Babri, okay, the same name, okay, the two different name for a same book, which is an autobiography written by Babur himself. Okay, about his personality, his reign, and the kingdom he ruled. Already I have discussed with you. It's a very positive book. It's tell the struggle done by the Babur and how the positive attitudes, confidence, and the never give up attitudes make him the empire of this big kingdom. Okay.
Humayun,
So the first one is Babur. The second great Mughal is Humayun.
1530 to 1540, 1555 to 15.
So you will see here there are two timelines 1530 to 40 and then 55 to 56. ऐसा क्यों है? What is the reason that after 40 the Humayun came in 55? So जो बीच के 15 years हैं, what happened in during that time? So that is very important. Just stay tuned. You will find that something bad happened for Humayun during that time. Okay, let's check out.
The eldest son of Babur, Nasiruddin Muhammad Humayun, succeeded him in 1530. Humayun had three brothers, Kamran, Hindal, and Askari. The name Humayun means lucky, but in reality his life was full of problems. As a ruler, he faced a lot of disturbances. He was left alone because he did not get actual support of his brothers who were unhappy with the small areas under them. Humayun's tumultuous life can be divided into three phases. The first phase, 1530 to 1540, was a time of struggle and stress. He faced a tough struggle against Sher Shah Suri of Bihar and Bahadur Shah of Gujarat. In 1532, Humayun and Sher Shah fought a battle for the first time. Humayun won and captured the fort of Chunar. In 1534, Humayun captured Gujarat and Malwa after defeating Bahadur Shah. But Humayun had no time to consolidate his empire. Sher Shah again attacked Humayun and defeated him in the Battle of Chausa and Kannauj. In the second phase, 1540 to 1545, the Afghan king Sher Shah Suri annexed his empire. Sher Shah drove.
So the first phase of Humayun, see Humayun, he was the eldest son of Babur. So he gone for the throne and he get the throne. But the other brothers were not happy because they get a very small areas to administrate. Now Humayun was the name itself means lucky, but as the system says here, that he faces a lot of trouble by during his empire time, because during his reign time, because there was protest all around, revolts all around the areas. Plus, there was a battle between Sher Shah and the Bahadur Shah, which he fought individually, which was a very tough competitors for him. And you will find that in the 1540, Sher Shah defeated Sher Shah Suri defeated the Humayun and established the Sher Shah Suri Empire. So that means from 1540 there was no Mughal Empire till 1555. The 15 years time in between was under the Afghan rule of Sher Shah, okay, who drove his out of his kingdom, Humayun, okay.
Drove Humayun out of his kingdom. Humayun became a refugee and escaped to Persia. He spent the next 15 years in exile.
15 years in exile, Humayun means he is not living in the areas where he's supposed to be, and now he is living in Persia under the protection of some other king, leaving all its families. You will find that Humayun have a very good connect with the Rajput families during that time. So he left his family, means his wife and the son Akbar, to some Rajput, uh, you can say, kingdoms, rulers. Okay, and he went for the Persia and lived there for the next 15 years.
It was during this time that Sher Shah Suri and his successors reigned supreme in India. It was in the third phase, that is, from 1545 to 1555, that Humayun made Kabul his base. Here he made preparations to recover the lost territories in India. Sher Shah had died and his successors were weak. Finally, 1555 to 1556, Humayun was successful and got back the throne of Delhi. But as luck would have it, it did not survive long after this. It so happened that he fell down from the stairs of his library, Sher Mandal, and died in 1556.
So Humayun fought back. Okay, he establishes uh, base in Kabul. Now, Kabul is the capital of Afghanistan. So you can easily imagine that he was sitting just outside the empire of Sher Shah Suri. Now, when the Sher Shah Suri died and his successor approaches the throne, that leads to the uh, final system that his successor was weak, and opportunity was taken care by the Humayun, resulting into the final establishment and getting back his throne of Delhi. But what happened that even if getting the throne on 1556, he died in 1556 by falling from a library named Sher Mandal.
Sher Shah Suri, 1540 to 1545.
See why we are studying Sher Shah Suri in the Mughal Empire itself, because he is not a part of Mughal Empire, but he ruled for 5 years, and that 5 years was a very tremendous for him because he have done something else in the administration as well as in the economic structures of that time. Plus, he make a very big mark on the history during that time. That is why was he is very important for us to read in between the Mughal Empire time.
Sher Shah Suri was the most famous ruler of the Sur dynasty. Sher Shah was the son of an Afghan Jagirdar from Jaunpur in Uttar Pradesh. The real name of Sher Shah was Farid Khan. He was given the title of Sher after he killed a tiger. Sher Shah was an ambitious ruler. Although Sher Shah was a fine ruler with an exemplary qualities, but the Sur dynasty does not survive for long. Achievements. Sher Shah became the Sultan of Delhi after defeating Humayun in two battles. In a short period of 5 years, he built a strong kingdom. His empire extended from Jhelum to Brahmaputra and Himalayas to Narmada. Known for his excellent administrative skills, Sher Shah also improved the administration of his territories. Sher Shah had a large standing army. He continued with Alauddin's practice of branding the horses. Welfare measures. Sher Shah is remembered for his concern and welfare of his subjects. Abbas Sherwani wrote the history of Sher Shah in 1579. He observed that a philanthropist at heart, Sher Shah was generous. He gave specific orders that anyone in the need of food should be fed at the king's kitchen. He constructed an excellent network of roads in his empire. Grand Trunk Road, that is GT Road, was one such highway constructed and was called Sadak-e-Azam or Highway.
So the GT road, the Grand Trunk Road, which we generally say is that passes from the Delhi, which goes to the Lahore side, was initially built by the Sher Shah Suri. Sher Shah Suri, original name was Farid Khan. Why he called as the Sher? Because he killed a tiger. That's why he called as the Sher. Very ambitious plus very generous king. He was very kind. Why? You will find that it is written in here that if someone poor or if someone not able to get the food to eat, he can come. He is welcome for to get the food from the king's kitchen. Okay, so overall there was a very good perspective of this guy, but what happens that he was not ruled for many years. He died in 45, and after that the Sur dynasty, because of the weak rulers, cannot sustain for a long period of time, and that was taken care. The opportunity of this was advantage of this was taken by the Humayun.
It starts from Sonagarh in Bengal and then passes through Lahore in Punjab and ends at Multan.
So it's a very big road.
The second road is connected to Multan via Lahore. The third road links Agra to Jodhpur and Chittor. Trade and commerce flourished as the interests of the merchants were taken care of. Sher Shah reduced custom duties. He introduced a new coin called the rupiah.
Yes. So you will find many things we can generally relate now also. GT road is still there. Okay, NH1 or NH44 we called is that. Okay, rupiah, the currency, rupiah, it's come from the Sher Shah Suri time. So see how history is very important for you to know the actual history of the present time. क्योंकि रुपया कहाँ से आया? Okay, so this is the word rupiah is the currency issued started by the Sher Shah Suri.
It remained a standard coin for centuries. Sher Shah was also known for providing an impartial judicial system. The two most exotic examples of architecture of the Surs are the Purana Qila, that is Old Fort in Delhi, and the tomb of Sher Shah at Sasaram in Bihar. After his death, he was succeeded by Islam Shah. Humayun defeated Islam Shah and thus ended the Sur dynasty. Akbar the Great.
Okay, so we read first Babur, who started the Mughal Empire, then his eldest son, second ruler was Humayun, and the third one is the Akbar, which we called as Akbar the Great. But in between, there was one big new ruler called as Sher Shah Suri, who is not a part of Mughal Empire, but he defeated Humayun and resulting into the establishment of Sur dynasty during in between the 15 years of time. Okay, so the third great Mughal, or you can say one of the greatest of all the Mughal Empire ruler is the Akbar, and he is called as Akbar the Great. Why? We have to study him in a very detailed manners. Okay, so out of all till now, okay, Akbar is very important. So always give focus while reading or learning on Akbar.
1556 to 1605.
So you see the timeline 1556 to 1605, almost 50 years of time. So he had ruled for a half a century. Okay, half a century is a very big time, and you can say eventually it will result to some good establishment and the system of that time.
Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar was born in Amarkot at the time when his father Humayun was in exile. With Humayun's sudden death in 1556, Akbar was made king when he was just 13. He was the greatest ruler of the Mughal dynasty. He brought glory to the Mughal Empire and is therefore known as Akbar the Great. Bahram Khan became the regent or guardian of young Akbar.
So, see, Akbar was just 11, 13 years of an age. It is not possible for 13 years of a, you can even call that time he is a child. Okay. So he is not able how he can control the system during that time. So Behram Khan became the regent or the guardian of your young Akbar. Means Behram Khan is the guru, you can say guru, who guided or who have taken the control of the Mughal Empire during that times, how the system was work. He teaches the Akbar and he remained there till the Akbar wants him to.
As soon as Akbar assumed power, he defeated Himu, that is, general of Afghan forces, in the second battle of Panipat.
So second battle of Panipat was fought in 1556 by the Mughals and the Hemu forces, the Afghan forces. So Akbar versus Hemu, second battle of Panipat.
In 1560, Akbar ended the regency of Bahram Khan.
So after 1560, now Akbar is its own. Okay, he is not under any protection. He is the superior king and he can work as he wants.
Akbar took over the reins of his kingdom and followed the policies of conquests and alliances to consolidate his kingdom. Akbar's major military campaigns.
So how Akbar works in this 15 years, you can see here that he done some military campaigns to conquer some areas, and even he have alliances means he joined hands with the other kingdoms, for example Rajput kingdoms, okay, by matrimonials, by marriage, marrying some Rajput queens, or by their sons marriages. So that why he make a matrimonial alliance with the others, so that overall his superiority shall maintain in the Indian subcontinents.
Akbar made a plan of expansion and set out on campaigns. 1561, Malwa was conquered. 1564, Gondwana was conquered. 1568, Chittor and Ranthambore was annexed.
So you see that there are very much time, dates, years given in this history. So see, if you able to recollect this, if you able to remember this, then it is okay. But otherwise, you just follow the chronological system that okay, Malwa, Gondwana, Chittur, Ranthambore were annexed by Akbar. Okay, if you able to learn the dates, it's good. If not, there is no as such issue. You should just know that okay, who came first, means Babur came first, then Humayun, then Akbar. It should not be like that, that Akbar, Babur, Humayun. That is the main thing. And slowly when you read this chapter two three times, you will get the full knowledge and the date timeline in this system.
Rana Uday Singh lost the fort of Chittor. 1570, Gujarat, Bengal and Odisha was conquered. 1576, Akbar fought the Battle of Haldi Ghati with Rana Pratap, son of Rana Uday Singh of Mewar. He also brought Berar, Khandesh and parts of Ahmednagar under his control. 1581 to 98, Kashmir, Sindh, Kandahar and Kabul were conquered. This gave way to closer trade relations with Central Asia and Persia and made northwestern frontiers secure.
So, Central Asia is the area of Afghanistan, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. All this part, Persia, comes under the Central Asia. Now, Persia बहुत ज़्यादा use होता है in history. So, Persia is any country now? Yes, Iran. Okay, Iran of today's time is called as Persia in the medieval time. Okay, so जब हम पर्शिया की बात कर रहे हैं, that means Iran. And you will find that Akbar sorry, almost controlled the northern part to the central to the eastern part. Just southern part was left under the Mughal Empire in the Akbar time.
Akbar's policies.
So some of the Akbar policies we will see here are
Akbarnama informs us about Akbar's rule and his policies which helped him to control the empire. Wonderful to know. The history of Akbar's rule was written by Abul Fazl. Akbar commissioned him to write his historical account, Akbarnama. Abul Fazl successfully wrote the history in 3 volumes. The first and second volumes describe the lineage and the main events in the reign of Akbar the Great. The third volume is called Aine-Akbari. It gives a detailed account of the Mughal administration, household, revenues, army, etc.
so what is the point here that Babur Nama was an autobiography of Babur, means Babur wrote himself his story. But Akbar Nama is not an autobiography. It is not written by Akbar. It is written by Abul Fazl. Okay.
Rajput policy.
Now the Rajput policy. So Mughals all the Mughals have their Rajput policies because Rajputs are the dominant force in the medieval time during when Delhi Sultanate or even the Mughal Empire also ruled. So they have their every ruler who came or Mughal Empire who came on the throne of the Mughal Empire, they have different Rajput policy. But the policy followed by the Akbar was succeeded more than any other of them.
Akbar realized very early that a tolerant approach was a must to rule over Hindustan.
Tolerant approach. When we talk about tolerant approach means giving respects to all religion, not forcing the other people like Hindu, Jain, Brahmins to convert into Muslims. Okay, so tolerant approach means existence of every religion in the empire. So he followed that system that resulted a very good result for them.
For this, he took several measures. Akbar was a compassionate emperor. Even after defeating the Rajput kings, he did not insult or humiliate them. He treated them with dignity and respect. He found that Rajput warriors were brave and loyal. He allowed the Rajput rulers to rule over their territories even after they were defeated in war. These rulers helped Akbar by commanding their army or supplying contingents during a war. Akbar got into matrimonial alliances with Rajputs. In January 1562, Akbar met Raja Bharmal or Bihari Mal, the ruler of Amber. Akbar's marriage to his eldest daughter Harkha Bai
Harkha Bai is also known as Jodha Bai.
secured him the powerful support of Amber throughout his reign. Akbar was a tolerant and sensitive emperor who allowed his Hindu wives to enjoy complete religious freedom. Many Rajputs were given high posts in Akbar's administration as they were trustworthy and sincere. Raja Bhagwan Das and Raja Man Singh were his most trusted officials. Despite all these policies, some Rajput states like Ranthambore and Jodhpur refused to submit to Akbar. Religious policy.
So you should know that Rajput policy, what the Akbar find out that it is not possible to rule the Hindustan without making an alliances with the dominant force of Hindustan during that time. And who was the dominant force during that time? Rajputs. Now he also find that Rajputs are brave and they are also loyal to its soil. So after defeating the Rajputs, he provided them the service to work under the Mughal Empire by giving them big ranks in the Mughal Empire only, and giving them to rule on their kingdoms. Just keeping that, okay, that will comes under the full umbrella of Mughal empires. So this was about the Rajput policies, and you will see that he allowed his Hindu wives, that is the tolerant approach, to worship all the religions, okay, Hindu religions according to their own wish. Religious policy. Let's check what's religious policies of Akbar. See, Akbar is very important and it's a very big topic. So try to give more focus on this ruler.
See, wisdom does not come with education alone. This stands true in Akbar's case, who followed a wise and tolerant religious policy. His palace was a hub of celebrations on Eid as well as Hindu festivals. His secular attitude was followed by the subjects too, who did not harbor feelings of hatred. Akbar treated people of all religious faiths and all classes of society equally. In 1570 at Fatehpur Sikri, Akbar started discussions on religion with the ulemas, Brahmanas, Jesuit priests who were Roman Catholics and Zoroastrians.
So Akbar gave importance to every religions. He have not discriminated or exploited any person on the name of religion. In Fatehpur Sikri, okay, he started the discussions on working on the religions with others. You will find that it's this discussions led to a new system of religion in the Akbar time. So uh, this all discussions took place in a area called as Ibadat Khana. Ibadat Khana is the areas which is also called as the hall of worship. So discussion centers around its involving different religions and variations and social custom prevalence in those times. So this was the systems followed by the Akbar during that time.
These discussions took place in Ibadat Khana, which was a hall of worship. Discussions centered around issues involving different religions and various social customs prevalent in those times. He consistently followed the principle of universal peace, that is, Sulhekul.
So universal peace. Universal peace was his agenda. When we talk about universal peace, it means Sulh Kul in the language of Persia. Okay, Persian language. Sulh Kul, universal peace. There should be a peace all around the world, all around the universe. Okay, so this was about the religious policy. So it's a big topic, guys. So we will stop here. Just revise all the topics which we have discussed. Okay, tomorrow we will continue from here. Thank you so much.